So when we talk about strategy, it's more than just having a strategy. You need a good strategy and a special strategy for digital. So you're going a little bit beyond uh, the regular stuff that you normally see. So the migration that we go through is first, what is it? We make money. We know the customer. So where do we go from here? We need to do better. Uh, we so we need more than just a strategy. We want something better. And so we want to develop a good strategy. And so what does that entail? Well, we have a business, we're making money, we know who the customer is, and now it's time for us to change. So what is it that we migrate? How do we change? Well, one is we just want to be better, lower costs, make more money. That's pretty straightforward. And then what happens is you start to migrate. You realize, what is it that we can do with all this capability to delight the customer? And beyond that, then we evolve into transformation, that we understand our values and we can use what digital technology offers us to expand into greater places. And so the question is, are we focused on the customer experience, or digital technology can also help us be more efficient, be better? And so naturally, if we're focused on both, we're ready for the future. Not so much either, then we're just going to do what we do better. And so the question is are we going to make the customer experience better, or if we're just focused on us, then we make life easier for us? Some common strategies are, we want 10% growth. I want more market share. I want to hold off my competition. Or in terms of my operations, I want to decrease costs and increase output. That's the way people normally think. And this is the wrong way to go about transformation. You're not transforming. Yes, these are tangible matrix, but that's not what digital migration is about. The people who get it understand that, again, it's creating something new from me. So, what is my objective? This is the strategy process. What's the landscape? What's going on internally and externally? Who is the target market? Who's the customer? What resources can we bring to bear? What leadership and processes do I need to bring on board? And what's my risk? So your standard business strategy that you've got in other courses still apply. And so when you see where the big bang for the buck is, it's an innovation. Those who invest in R&D or redesign their teams and all, those are the ones who are getting the money back. And so who's going to lead this? Well, what happens is you have people within your organization who get it. Those are your digital masters. Those are the people who understand the implications of what you're doing. Those are the ones who are going to lead you forward. And what if I decide I'm just going to force it? I'm the CEO. Damn it, we're going to become digital. That is a hard way to go. First of all, you're going to be spending upwards of $100 million to make these kind of changes. And to comply and modernize overnight is really tough. It could take you up to 5 years because people don't get it, people don't understand it, and so the process is slow. There's going to be resistance. Perhaps you're going to test it through smaller programs. And by testing it through smaller programs, you can figure out what the bugs are before you scale up. And not only that, but a bottoms-up approach gets people committed to what you're trying to do. They feel like part of the process, and so it moves faster and there's urgency. The point is that you're modernizing, but you don't have any strategy when you force it. And so that's why typically it doesn't work and companies fail. The way you could think about it is your company's an animal. So what are you doing? You're migrating. You're moving to more fertile grounds, and that's what this digital technology is doing for you. So the next part is, how do I go about executing this digital strategy? Kurt Lewin, the HR and uh, human resources guru once said that an organization, in order to change it, you've locked into processes and all. So now I need to unfreeze it. And then what I need to do is make my changes within the organization and then refreeze it. So, so I have consistency. And so what happens, you reincarnate. You become something new every time. And so your own internal culture and development is going to be your big challenges. Now, when you look at your organization, very large organizations tend to be siloed. And the reason why they silo is because you tend to have focus groups on product franchises. Uh, However, within an organization and within these silos, pockets of excellence form. When at the top it's mandated, how are we going to change to digital? People will emerge who can become experts at these things, and these are your digital masters. And then you allow them to experiment. What they're going to do is that software doesn't exist in a bubble. It's going to touch somebody else. And so they're going to touch other people in your organization. And then you're going to have all these pockets together. And then the key is to stitch all these together into a cohesive group. Essentially, this is the pattern that corporations follow, the successful ones at digital. But you have to integrate all the pieces together. Your executive management, your tech, people on the job. That means people internally, like your finance people or something like that. How do they bring this aboard? Or your people who face the customer, customer facing. Who are those people? What it comes down to is digital transformation. It's about an organizational and a managerial challenge, much more so than is a technology one. Technology's out there, lots of consultants can put it in place. The question is, how are you going to use it? And so in terms of leadership, your C-suite is the one who has to drive it, but they can't micromanage it. They have to align to your vision and mission, and it's got to diffuse internally within your customers that everyone buys into it. And so in terms of capability, these are the capabilities you need for digital innovation as opposed to established business processes. And your process focus, your external innovation, what are things you can take off the shelf instead of you doing it? Your digital masters don't necessarily need one person. It could be a team of people, but they have to know the business. They have to be able to challenge each other. They're going to go up against resistance. Anything new and anything innovative, you will go up against resistance. So the question is how are they going to outwit and take care of these cynics? And I've been through that. There are times you just have to let them win. Let them have the small stuff, but you're going to have to fight for the big stuff. And so you put yourself at risk. You're making pretty big bets. People's necks start getting awfully long. That's what my boss used to always say to me. And so your management is still run top down, but it's a culture of sharing knowledge. You're a knowledge-based organization with distributed leadership. That's the way you make all of this work. And so, do you have shared vision in your organization? One thing is I never believed in 100% consensus, because 100% consensus means that everybody agrees, which by definition means you've come up with a mediocre solution. What I do believe in is 100% understanding. Everybody needs to know why you're here, where you are, how you came to these conclusions, and why is it that you're moving forward the way you're moving forward. That's shared vision, that everybody understands where it is you're trying to get to and why you're taking the road that you're taking. An example of setting culture, Gary Loveman, who is CEO of Harrah's Caesar Palace, he decided in this day and age of data analytics, they needed to change. They needed to become about analytics. So how do you change that culture? Well, he said there are 3 ways to get fired from Caesars. Number 1 is steal from us. Number 2 is harass somebody. And number 3 is to run an experiment without a control group. Now there's humor in that. I mean, it's kind of like Inky Blinky, I forgot the next one, Winky and Clyde, or whatever. But what it does do, though, is it starts to set the culture now. We are going to be about data and we are going to be analytics. but he did it in a fun and articulate way. Your leaders define your culture. As the old saying goes, the fish stinks from the head. For those of you who go on to grad school or maybe are in grad school, the one thing you see is that grad students tend to follow their advisors. If their advisors are jerks, the students are jerks. If the advisors are charitable, the students are charitable. Some examples. John Hancock used marketing as its digital marketing as its beachhead, and then they diffused outwards. Volvo, how did they change over time? They started out B2B before going to B2C. Their first pocket was trucks. And McDonald's, they found revenue dropping. This is why you have all these new apps and everything else. They decided to streamline the customer experience. This is why I love the McDonald's kiosks now. Not have to stand in line and just go ahead and punch in your order. Who leads the digital process early on? It's your IT people because you're technically based. And later on, it's the CEO's office. They take the lead. In terms of forming a better strategy, how does it help my business know myself and believe what I can become? Soften the entry, which means get your people prepared, make them part of the process, and then plan a path forward. And those who make it and those who don't. And so, what are some examples? How have other people done this? And for example, using digital, it lowers barriers. I can open storefronts in India without having to go to India and actually do it. IoT. Farmers, they found out robots are the greatest thing on earth. Why? They outwork humans, and they outwork humans a lot. They don't get tired. They can run at night. There are sensors on all these machines now. And so, all of a sudden, that tractor can do a lot of its own. Nike, they're trying to become broad and agile. They're going with a new belief that we want to be with you every day. And with all the wearables, and they're talking about smart materials and everything else, it's possible. You could see that they're dreaming big. You have to be able to execute correctly. Marriott learned that the hard way. Your digital has to integrate. What happened is their app worked great, but it didn't connect to everything. It didn't connect to the concierge and the room service and everything else. And so you could do some things, but not others. It was terribly frustrating for the customers. Adobe, they realized their employees were actually customers. And so they relied on their employees to give them feedback on where they were going. The thing about transformation is we've been talking about digital transformation, but digital is more, excuse me, transformation is more than just digital. Transformation is about how do I change in a rapidly changing world. For example, there's too much plastic waste in the ocean. How do I know? I'm a plastic bottling plant. How do I know there's not going to be a backlash? And they're going to start to restrict plastic. What's my future then? Do I just shutter the doors? No, it's time to transform. Because I am not a plastics company. I am a container company. I allow people to transport what they need. And so, maybe now I move to metal. Maybe I move to biodegradable materials. There's all kinds of different ways I can go. Power plants. The end is coming. Do you just shutter the plants and take the loss? Or do you think about, okay, I've got this huge chemical plant. What do I do with it? Can I use it for something else? How do I transform? And so as you can see, the mindset is more than just digital. But it all comes down to the same thing. You have to know your value and my value to my customer. Be true to my story. And with all this technology, how am I going to apply this and increment what my power actually is? So the transformation journey starts out with you're dealing with silos. But within those silos, islands of excellence can emerge. And then I can transform. The thing is, no digital thing changes by itself. You need domain experts. You need the IT guy. You need the marketing guy. What is it that's going to transform and change it? And those teams or that person become my digital masters. Through interaction, they'll stitch together their own organization. And the important thing is I know the values of the business. And so, that is the transformation journey.